Part 1. The sky over Varel 9 was not blue, not even close. It shimmered in dull shades of violet and gray, lit by a distant red dwarf star that never seemed to rise or set. The air smelled faintly of ozone and cold metal. Daniel Hayes stood on the observation deck of the Concord diplomatic spire, his hands clasped behind his back, watching a fleet of alien vessels glide silently through the upper atmosphere. They moved like schools of fish, smooth, coordinated, ancient. He had seen Earth ships, too, back home. They were loud, bright, and full of life. These felt like ghosts. Beside him, Lena Ortiz adjusted the collar of her formal suit. It was stiff, uncomfortable, and borrowed from the Martian delegation because Earth still didn't have its own diplomatic wardrobe. She glanced at Daniel, her dark eyes sharp with worry. "They're going to say no," she said quietly. Daniel didn't answer right away. He knew she was right. He'd known it since the moment their shuttle docked, and the Velnari honor guard refused to return their salute, since the Cathari ambassador had referred to Earth as that noisy little rock near Sol during a closed-door briefing. Since the Concord's protocol officer had handed them seating charts that placed humanity in the back row, behind species that hadn't launched a ship in 3 centuries. Still, they had come. Not to beg but to ask. To show that Earth had grown, that it had unified after the resource wars, healed its wounds, and reached for the stars not with weapons first but with open hands. Now, they waited for the verdict. Inside the grand chamber, the air hummed with low-frequency translator fields. Hundreds of species filled the tiered amphitheater, tall, feathered Zorathi, gelatinous Morellians in fluid-filled suits, the armored 6-limbed Cathari seated like statues. At the center, the High Council sat on floating platforms, their faces unreadable behind masks of polished bone and light. Daniel and Lena were called forward. Their footsteps echoed too loudly on the smooth floor. Every eye, if the species had eyes, turned toward them. Daniel kept his breathing steady. Lena held a data crystal in her palm containing Earth's full dossier. Population stats, scientific achievements, peace treaties, cultural archives, even recordings of children laughing in Tokyo. Nairobi and Buenos Aires, a Velnari elder, her voice filtered through a soft chime-like modulator, spoke first. Species designation human. Origin, Sol system, 3rd planet. Technological age, 287 standard years. Political cohesion, questionable. Historical record, violent. Daniel opened his mouth to respond, but Lena gently touched his arm. She stepped forward instead. "We've made mistakes," she said, her voice clear and calm. "We've fought each other. We've burned forests, poisoned oceans, built walls. But we also built libraries, hospitals, symphonies. We sent probes to every planet in our system, before we even had clean water for everyone. And when we saw the stars weren't empty, we didn't shoot first. We listened." A Cathari delegate snorted, a sound like grinding stone. "Listening is not strength. Unity is not proven by pretty words." Lena didn't flinch. "Then test us. Give us a task. Let us prove we belong." Silence stretched. Then the eldest Velnari rose. Her mask glowed faintly. "The Concord does not grant membership to species still learning to govern themselves. Your world is fractured. Your history is short. Your presence here, premature." Daniel finally spoke. "We're not asking for special treatment. Just a chance. The table is full," the elder said simply. "Return when you are ready." That was it. No debate, no vote. Just dismissal. Back in their quarters, Daniel sat on the edge of his narrow cot, staring at the floor. Lena paced, her boots clicking against the synthetic tiles. Outside, the violet sky darkened into night. "They didn't even look at the data," she muttered. "They made up their minds before we landed." Daniel rubbed his temples. "They see us as children. Loud, messy children who stumbled into the adult room." "Then let them keep thinking that," Lena said, stopping suddenly. Her eyes lit up. "While they're busy guarding their old rules, we'll be building something new." Daniel looked up. "What do you mean?" She sat beside him. "You saw the salvage reports from the Helios Fringe, right? That crashed scout ship from the Cathari border skirmish last year. Our engineers pulled a working gravity core from it. Chloe Ruiz thinks she can adapt it to human reactors. Marcus Bell's team is already testing shield harmonics based on Velnari debris." Daniel frowned. "That's risky. The Concord forbids reverse engineering." Lena gave a dry laugh. "They also forbade us from joining. So which rule matters more?" He didn't answer. But something shifted in his expression. The shame began to harden into something else. Resolve. The next morning, they boarded their shuttle for the trip home. As the ship lifted off, Daniel looked down at Varel 9 one last time. The spire gleamed like a silver needle in the dull landscape. Inside it, the Concorde sat in judgment, certain of their place at the center of the galaxy. But Earth was different. Earth didn't wait for permission. It built radios from scrap, flew planes before it understood aerodynamics, walked on the moon with less computing power than a modern toaster. Humanity's greatest skill wasn't war or diplomacy. It was making something out of nothing. Back on Earth, the news of the rejection spread fast. Protest flared in Geneva, Jakarta, Rio. But so did something else. In orbital shipyards above Mars, welders worked double shifts. In labs beneath the Himalayas, scientists ran new simulations. In classrooms from Lagos to Vancouver, kids drew starships with Earth flags on them. The United Terran Initiative, once a loose coalition of nations, activated its emergency protocols. Resources were pooled. Old rivalries were shelved, not because of fear, but because of pride. They had been told they didn't belong. Fine, they'd build their own place. Daniel stood on the command deck of the newly christened station Unity 1, watching Earth spin below, blue, green, alive. Lena joined him, holding a tablet with schematics scrolling across the screen. "They denied us a seat," she said. Daniel nodded. "So we'll claim the whole table." And for the first time since leaving Varel 9, he smiled. Part 2. After the rejection from the Galactic Concorde, Earth did not fall apart. Instead, it came together. The United Terran Initiative, once just a name on treaties and emergency broadcasts, became real. Not with speeches or flags, but with steel, circuits, and sweat. Across the planet and beyond, people began to work like they never had before. Not for one nation or one company, but for Earth itself. High above the red dust of Mars, in silent shipyards built inside hollowed-out asteroids, Marcus Bell wiped grease from his brow and stared at the skeleton of a new vessel. It was long, sleek, and unlike anything the Concorde had ever seen. Human ships didn't copy alien designs, they mixed them. They took the smooth hull curves of Velnari cruisers, the layered armor plating from Cathari warships, and fused them with old Earth engineering, modular bays, quick-swap engines, and cockpits built for human hands and human reflexes. Marcus wasn't a general or a politician. He was a mechanic from Detroit who used to fix fusion trucks before the resource wars ended. Now he led a team of 200 engineers from 12 countries, all living in zero gravity, eating recycled meals, and dreaming in schematics. They called their project the Forge Fleet, and every ship they built had a name from Earth's past. Horizon, Dauntless Sojourner, Endeavor. Down on Earth, in a converted subway tunnel beneath Buenos Aires, Chloe Ruiz tested a new flight control system. She had been a stunt pilot in the Pacific Air Games before the UTI recruited her. Now she flew simulations of dogfights against AI modeled on Cathari tactics. Her hands moved fast over the controls, calm even when alarms blared. She wasn't just learning how to fight, she was learning how to win without wasting a single shot. "What's the point of a shield if you can't dodge?" she'd say, grinning as her virtual ship slipped through a barrage of plasma fire. The UTI didn't just build weapons, they built everything. Mobile farms that could feed a city on a frozen moon, water purifiers that worked in acid rain, medical drones that stitched wounds in midair. They took the scraps of alien tech, salvaged from derelict scouts, crashed drones, even discarded Concorde waste pods, and turned them into tools. Not to copy, but to improve. When the Concorde sent a surveillance drone to watch Earth's orbital yards, it hovered near Unity 1 for 3 days. Then, without warning, it powered down. A small service pod from Earth docked with it, opened its casing, and rewired its core. 2 hours later, the drone rebooted and began broadcasting a looping message across all open frequencies. "We're listening." The message wasn't a threat. It was an invitation. And it worked. Small colonies on the edge of known space, places the Concorde ignored, started sending signals back. A mining outpost near Proxima Centauri shared asteroid maps. A research station orbiting a dead star sent energy readings. A farming world called Tarnus 4, struggling with failing soil, asked quietly if Earth had any ideas. Lena Ortiz, now head of the UTI's Science Directorate, didn't hesitate. She sent them a terraforming prototype, small, cheap and powered by solar cells and recycled CO2. It worked better than anyone expected. Within weeks, Tarnis 4's crops began to grow again. They sent back a thank you message with a video of children holding young green shoots like trophies. Back on Virel 9, the Concord noticed. At first, they dismissed it as luck, then as noise, but when 3 more fringe worlds reached out to Earth, the Council held a closed session. The Velnari elders argued that humanity was spreading influence without permission. The Cathari warned that Earth's tech was unstable, unpredictable, but a few younger delegates, the Zerathi, the Morellians, asked a different question. Why are they succeeding where we failed? On Earth, no one cared what the Concord thought. They were too busy working. Factories in Mumbai, Nairobi, and Vancouver ran day and night. Universities turned into training centers. Retired pilots taught teenagers how to read star charts. Grandparents shared stories of the old world while kids designed new hull shapes on tablets. The ships grew faster. The first Forge-class cruiser, the Horizon, launched under its own power. It carried no weapons, just sensors, labs, and cargo holds full of aid supplies. Its mission: to visit every non-conquered system within 50 light-years and offer help, not demands. Captain Owen Grant stood on the bridge as the Horizon cleared Earth's orbit. He had been a cargo hauler in the belt before the UTI called him. Now he wore a simple gray uniform with no medals, just a patch of Earth's continent stitched over his heart. Set course for Tarnis 4, he said. Aye, sir, replied Priya Mehta, his tactical officer and former chess champion from Chennai. She had joined the UTI after winning a strategy tournament that simulated fleet movements. Now she planned real missions with the same calm focus. As the Horizon jumped into faster-than-light travel, a ripple went through the galaxy. Not loud, not violent, just a quiet shift, like a stone dropped in still water. Meanwhile, back at Unity 1, Daniel Hayes watched the launch from the observation deck. Lena stood beside him, arms crossed, smiling faintly. They'll notice us now, she said. They already have, Daniel replied. But this time it's not because we asked to sit down. It's because we stood up. Below them, Earth turned, blue, bright, and full of people who refused to be told they weren't ready. They weren't waiting for a seat at someone else's table. They were building their own, and they were making room for others to join. In the shipyards, Marcus welded another seam onto the Dauntless. In Buenos Aires, Chloe ran another simulation. On Tarnis 4, farmers planted seeds under a sky they thought was lost. And on the Horizon, Owen Grant looked at the stars not as distant judges but as neighbors. No one on Earth spoke of revenge. They spoke of work, of building, of proving, not with words but with action, that humanity belonged, not because the conquered said so, but because they showed it every single day. And in the silence between the stars, something new began to grow. Not an empire, not a rebellion, just a promise that no one would be left behind again. Part 3. Peace never lasts long when someone thinks they own the sky. The conquered liked order, and order meant control. They had drawn lines across star systems, declared zones neutral, and punished anyone who crossed them without permission. Earth had stayed quiet, building ships, helping small worlds, and minding its own business. But the conquered watched, and they waited. Then came the Helios Rift. It was a stretch of space near the edge of human-explored territory, full of magnetic storms, drifting ice, and old wreckage from forgotten battles. Earth had sent a civilian freighter, the Bright Star, to deliver medical supplies and soil stabilizers to a research outpost there. The ship carried no weapons, only cargo and a crew of 6. Captain Elena Ruiz, Chloe's older sister, was in command. She had flown supply runs since the early days of the UTI, calm and steady, with a laugh that could ease any tension. The Cathari patrol found her near the rift's outer edge. 3 warships, black and jagged, dropped out of warp without warning. They hailed the Bright Star once in broken standard, demanding she cease illegal activity in conquered protected space. Elena replied calmly that she was on a humanitarian mission, registered with no known restrictions. The Cathari didn't answer. They fired. The Bright Star vanished in a flash of plasma. No distress call. No survivors. Just silence. When the news reached Earth, the reaction wasn't panic, it was quiet fury. In Unity 1, Daniel Hayes stood in the command center, staring at the empty signal from the Bright Star's last known coordinates. Lena Ortiz stood beside him, her face pale but set. Owen Grant clenched his fists so hard his knuckles turned white. Chloe Ruiz, back from a training flight, said nothing. She just walked to the armory and started checking her flight suit. The Concorde issued a statement 2 days later. It called the incident regrettable, blamed miscommunication, and said the Cathari captain had been reprimanded. No punishment, no apology, just words. Earth did not send a protest. It sent a fleet, 12 ships. Not the biggest, not the flashiest, but the smartest. The Horizon led them, with Owen Grant at the helm and Priya Mehta coordinating tactics from the command deck. The Dauntless followed, Marcus Bell's engineering team ready to patch any damage mid-battle. And in the cockpit of the scout vessel Swift, Chloe Ruiz ran final checks, her eyes dry, her voice steady. They found the Cathari squadron near the Helios Rift, patrolling like they owned it. 4 warships resting in formation, shields low, weapons idle. They didn't expect trouble. After all, Earth had never fought back. Owen didn't give a speech. He didn't declare war. He just gave one order: disable them. No kills. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted 7 minutes. Earth's ships moved like dancers. The Swift darted in first, launching sensor drones that mapped the Cathari shield frequencies. Priya fed the data to the fleet in real time. The Horizon fired focused EMP pulses, not to destroy but to overload weapon capacitors. The Dauntless and 2 support vessels targeted engine couplings with precision rail shots, just enough to cripple thrust, not hull integrity. The Cathari scrambled, confused. Their weapons wouldn't fire. Their engines sputtered. Their comms filled with static. Within minutes, all 4 ships floated dead in space, powerless but intact. Not a single life lost. Then Owen did something no one expected. He opened a channel. "This is Captain Owen Grant of Earth," he said, his voice calm. "Your weapons are offline. Your engines are locked. You are not our prisoners. You are our message." He paused, then continued. "We do not seek war. But we will not be erased." The fleet pulled back. They left the Cathari ships drifting, systems slowly rebooting, crews alive but shaken. Then they turned and flew to the last known position of the bright star. There they held a silent memorial. Chloe released a data capsule into the void, a recording of her sister's voice laughing during a training exercise years ago. The fleet stood watch for 1 full orbit. Then they returned home. The galaxy noticed. The Concorde called an emergency session. The Velnari demanded sanctions. The K3 protested the unprovoked attack, but others spoke up. The Zarathi ambassador asked why the Cathari were patrolling a non-military zone. The Morellians questioned why a civilian ship was destroyed over a miscommunication. Even some mid-tier Concorde members whispered that Earth had shown more restraint than the Cathari ever would. Back on Earth, people didn't celebrate. They mourned. Cities held quiet vigils. Schools taught lessons about the Bright Star's crew, but they also watched the footage of the battle, how Earth's fleet moved with precision, how they chose not to kill, and felt something new. Pride not in violence, but in control. Daniel Hayes addressed the UTI Council that night. "We showed them we can fight," he said. "But more importantly, we showed them we choose not to unless we must." Lena added, "Now they know we're not just builders. We're protectors." Word spread fast. A mining colony near the Cygnus Arm sent a request for help against pirate raids. Earth sent 2 patrol cutters and a drone net. A research station under threat from solar flares got a shield generator within days. Each act was small, but together they painted a picture. Earth stood with the weak, not over them. The Concorde tried to reassert control. They declared new restrictions on jump lanes near human space, but Earth didn't obey. Instead, they built relay buoys, small, cheap, and hidden in asteroid fields, that let ships bypass Concorde checkpoints entirely. Traders, refugees, and independent colonies began using them. The old routes grew quiet. The new ones hummed with traffic, and then the first defector came. A Cathari science vessel, tired of its government's arrogance, hailed the horizon near the outer rim. Its captain, a young officer named Vrel, asked for asylum. He brought data, Concorde plans to isolate Earth, to cut off trade, to label them rogue. Owen granted his request without hesitation. Vrel was given a new post on Unity 1, helping translate alien tech manuals. More followed. A Velnari historian disillusioned with her council's lies. A Zarathi trader who liked Earth's fair prices. Each one chipped away at the Concorde's authority. Daniel knew the real battle wasn't in space. It was in trust, and Earth was winning. One evening, as he stood on Unity 1's deck watching a supply ship dock, Lena joined him. "They thought we'd break when they pushed us," she said. Daniel nodded. "Instead, we bent and built something stronger." Below them, Earth glowed in the dark, not with weapons, but with light from cities, labs, and shipyards. And out in the void, 12 ships waited, not for war, but for the next chance to prove that humanity didn't need permission to do what was right. Part 4. After the Helios Rift incident, Earth did not wait for the next attack. It moved first, not with guns, but with help. The UTI shifted its focus from defense to aid. Ships that once carried weapons now carried seeds, medicine, and clean water filters. Engineers who once built shields now built solar farms and air recyclers. The message was clear. Earth would not be the galaxy's soldier. It would be its neighbor. The first real test came from Tarnus 4, the farming world that had received Earth's first terraforming unit. A massive solar flare, born from its unstable red dwarf star, ripped through the system without warning. The planet's thin atmosphere began to burn away. Crops withered. Oxygen levels dropped. The people of Tarnus 4 sent a single desperate signal. "We are dying." The Concord received the message. They debated for 3 days. In the end, they declared Tarnus 4 outside emergency response protocols. Too far, too small, not worth the cost. Earth responded in 3 hours. The Horizon launched with a full mobile terraforming fleet. 6 ships packed with atmospheric stabilizers, magnetic deflectors, and drone swarms programmed to rebuild the ozone layer. Owen Grant commanded the mission. Priya Mehta coordinated logistics from orbit. On the ground, Marcus Bell led a team of engineers who set up shield emitters in the planet's equatorial valleys. Chloe Ruiz flew recon sweeps mapping radiation hotspots so the drones could target them first. They worked without sleep, without rest, without asking for thanks. Within a week, the atmosphere stabilized. Within 2, the first green shoots pushed through the ash-covered soil. The people of Tarnus 4 wept as rain fell for the first time in months. Clean, cool, life-giving rain. They sent a video to Unity 1, children dancing in the downpour, elders bowing toward the sky, farmers pressing their hands into wet earth. Earth didn't ask for payment, didn't demand loyalty, just said, "You're not alone." That act changed everything. Other worlds took notice. Places the conquered had ignored for centuries, mining colonies with failing reactors, research outposts stranded by supply cuts, refugee settlements on frozen moons, began sending signals to Earth. Not please. Not demands. Just quiet questions. "Can you help?" And Earth always answered yes. A station near Proxima Centauri needed a new water recycler. Earth sent a technician and a crate of parts. A moon colony in the Cygnus arm lost its main power grid. Earth dispatched 2 engineers and a portable fusion core. Each mission was small, but each one built trust. Word spread that Earth didn't come with contracts or conditions. It came with open hands. The conquered grew uneasy. Their control had always relied on fear and scarcity. Now Earth offered abundance and choice. Species that once bowed to conquered rules began to whisper about freedom. Trade routes shifted. Data streams rerouted. Even some conquered member worlds started sending secret messages to Unity 1, asking how they could join Earth's network. Then the blockade began. The Concord, led by the Cathari and Velnari hardliners, declared key jump lanes restricted. Any ship flying Earth markings would be turned back. They stationed patrol fleets at major transit points, their weapons hot, their orders clear. Stop Earth's influence. But Earth had planned for this. Instead of fighting, they bypassed. Hidden relay stations, built inside comets and hollowed asteroids, activated across the outer rim. Drone couriers, no bigger than a suitcase, zipped through uncharted microjumps carrying messages, medicine, and machine parts. Traders who once paid conquered tolls now used Earth's silent network. The blockade held empty space. The real traffic flowed unseen. The conquered's power began to crack. On Varel 9, arguments erupted in the council chamber. The Zarathi accused the Cathari of fear. The Morellians called the blockade cruel and pointless. Even some Velnari elders admitted that Earth's actions had saved lives the Concord had written off. Back on Earth, Daniel Hayes watched it all unfold from Unity 1. He no longer wore a diplomat suit. He wore a simple gray tunic like everyone else. Lena Ortiz stood beside him reviewing reports from a dozen worlds. They're scared, she said. Not of our weapons. Of our kindness, Daniel nodded. Kindness is harder to fight than war. You can't shoot an idea. Just then, a priority signal came through. It was from a mid-tier Concord world called Kesar Prime. Their ambassador, a soft-spoken Velnari named Tel, requested a private channel. When Daniel accepted, Tel's image appeared, tired but resolute. We wish to speak with Earth, Tel said, not as enemies. As equals. Daniel didn't smile. He just said, we're listening. That night, Kesar Prime announced its withdrawal from the Concord. 2 more worlds followed within the week, then 5, then 12. They didn't join Earth. They joined something new, a loose alliance built on mutual aid, open data, and shared defense. They called it the Open Accord, though no one had planned the name. It just stuck. The Concord tried to respond with force. A Cathari fleet moved toward Earth's outer relay near the Helios Rift. But this time they didn't find empty space. They found a wall of ships, not just Earth's but vessels from Tarnus 4, Kesser Prime, and 7 other worlds. None fired. They just formed a line and waited. The Cathari turned back. On Unity 1, Owen Grant watched the feed from the relay. They finally understand, he said. Understand what? Chloe asked, leaning against the console. That we're not alone anymore, Owen replied. Down on Earth, people kept working. Farmers planted crops. Teachers taught children about stars and soil. Engineers built better ships. No one celebrated the Concord's weakness. They celebrated the strength of their new friends. Daniel Hayes prepared for his next move. He didn't want to replace the Concord. He wanted to change it. He sent a message to the High Council. Not a demand, but an offer. Meet us, it said. Not as judges. As partners, the reply took 3 days. When it came, it was short. We will speak. Daniel read it once, then looked out at the stars. Earth had been denied a seat, but now it wasn't just at the table. It was helping to build a bigger one, and this time everyone would have a place. Part 5. The attack came without warning, not from the Concord, but from a splinter group of Velnari hardliners who called themselves the True Circle. They believed the Concord had grown weak by tolerating Earth's rise. So they struck where it would hurt most, not at ships or stations, but at memory itself. Their target, the lunar archives on Earth's moon, a vault holding centuries of human history, art, science, and voices. Every song ever recorded, every child's first word, every blueprint of every bridge and starship, stored in crystal matrices beneath the Sea of Tranquility. 3 stealth cruisers dropped out of warp near the moon's dark side. They fired plasma lances not to destroy the surface but to melt the cooling systems. Without cooling, the archives would overheat. Data would burn. Humanity's past would vanish in silence. But Earth was ready. Alarms blared across Unity 1. Owen Grant was in the mess hall drinking synthetic coffee when the alert flashed red. He ran to the bridge, Chloe Ruiz already in the pilot's seat of the Horizon, engines humming. Priya Mehta barked orders before he even sat down. All defense grids active. Lunar shield at full. Send the drone swarm. What the True Circle didn't know was that Earth no longer protected its treasures with walls alone. It protected them with friends. Before the Velnari ships could fire a second volley, the sky filled with vessels not just from Earth, but from Tarnus 4, Kesser Prime, Cygnus Theta, and 7 other worlds of the Open Accord. A Morellian freighter launched ice-cooled coolant pods toward the archives. A Zarathi corvette jammed the attackers' targeting systems. A Cathari defector, now flying under Earth's banner, disabled the lead cruiser's weapons with a single precision shot. The battle lasted less than 10 minutes. The True Circle ships were surrounded, outmaneuvered, and forced to surrender. Not a single archive crystal was lost. When the news spread, something unexpected happened. The Conquer did not condemn the attackers. Instead, the High Council issued a rare public apology. The Velnari elder who once called Earth premature stood before the chamber and said, "We failed to protect what matters." Earth did not. Then came the offer. Full membership. Equal standing. A permanent seat at the Concord table. Daniel Hayes received the message in his quarters on Unity 1. He read it twice, then handed it to Lena Ortiz. She scanned it, her expression unreadable. "Well?" he asked. She shook her head. "We don't need their table," he smiled. "I was hoping you'd say that." The next day, Earth sent its reply, not a rejection, but a proposal. They would not join the Concord as it was. Instead, They invited the Concord to join something new. The Open Accord. A coalition with no rulers, only partners. No hierarchy, only shared purpose. No closed doors, only open channels. To everyone's surprise, the Concord agreed to talk. The first summit of the Open Accord was not held in a grand spire or a council chamber. It took place aboard the Unity Habitat, a massive ring-shaped station built from the hulls of retired warships, scrap metal, and donated modules from a dozen worlds. Inside there were no thrones, no raised platforms, just a wide circular table, lit by soft Earth-style lamps, with chairs for every species that chose to come. On the day of the summit, Owen Grant stood near the viewport, watching ships arrive from every direction. Some were sleek and ancient, others patched and proud. He held a small cup of synthetic apple juice, the drink Earth had made famous across the stars. Chloe walked up beside him. "Nervous?" "No," he said. "Just glad we didn't have to burn the old table to build a new one." Inside, Daniel Hayes greeted delegates not as a victor, but as a host. He shook hands, exchanged gifts, a seed from Tarnus 4, a data crystal from Kessar Prime, a woven band from a Morellian elder. Lena spoke with scientists about sharing clean energy tech. Priya and Marcus helped set up the translation network so every voice could be heard clearly. The Velnari elder who once denied Earth a seat sat quietly at the table. When it was her turn to speak, she said only this: "We were wrong. Teach us how to listen." No treaties were signed that day, no borders redrawn, but something deeper happened. Trust once broken began to mend. Not because Earth had won a war, but because it had refused to stop helping, even its enemies. After the talks, as the delegates mingled, Owen raised his cup. People turned toward him, curious. "Turns out," he said, voice calm but clear, "we didn't need a seat. We just needed to build something better." A quiet cheer rose, not loud but warm. From humans, Velnari, Ketharis, Arathi, Morellians, and more. Not as separate species, but as neighbors. Back on Earth, people watched the broadcast in homes, schools, and shipyards. In Detroit, a young mechanic paused her work to smile at the screen. In Buenos Aires, an old pilot whispered, "Elena would have loved this." In Nairobi, children drew pictures of the Unity Habitat and taped them to their classroom walls. The galaxy was changing, not through conquest, but through connection. Earth had been told it was too young, too messy, too loud, but those were its strengths. It asked questions. It fixed what was broken. It made room. And now, around a table built from scraps and hope, humanity finally belonged. Not because it was given a place, but because it made one for everyone. The stars outside the habitat's windows shone as they always had, cold, distant, endless. But inside, for the first time in a long time, the future felt warm.